All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show for NBA. Have my guy B-Dubs here. Good to have you, man. It hasn't really been that long, but it feels like it's been a long time. I don't know why.
Yep.
But how are you feeling about this 8-gamer?
It's looking like we got another crazy one with all this news and more news to come. So,
It's
all
one of
right.
those slates.
Yep.
Yep, one of those slates. We have a ton of news, a ton of value. Definitely, we'll get to it. But good to see everyone in the chat. Harlock, Cujo, Dejan, let's make some money. Agreed. Dave, JM, Robert. Good to see all y'all. As you know, if you have questions, let us know. Happy to help out. I'll save most of them for the end, though, unless it's extremely relevant to what we're talking about in the moment. But we'll start off by looking at this Pacers Magic game. We don't have enough time to waste tonight. For the Pacers tonight, this is one of the teams that are pretty healthy on the slate, which in general kind of makes them a little boring. But what was your thought process here? Did someone stand out for you?
Just a few guys here. I typically don't like to play guys against Orlando just based on how the pace of how they play, but there's still a couple guys that's sticking out to me. So Miles Turner, of course. I know Turner chalk is
Worst
not the prettiest chalk, but he has been fairly consistent recently. 6,400 is a good price for him. Wendell's still out, and Goga's not really too concerning defensive wise. So I think this is a solid spot for him tonight. Benedict, he's another guy who's kind of been stepping up with some of the guys that they're missing, and his price is getting up a bit high, but with how he's performing, I still think it's too low. So I put a 15% min on him. I think I'm getting like in the mid 20s, but put 15 just to make sure he doesn't fall below that because that's like the minimum I want.
Mm-hmm.
And then Halliburton, you never know which one you're gonna get, but I'm willing to risk playing him at this low ownership. And 8,100 is a good price for him as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
go ahead.
know?
Nope, go ahead.
No, I was looking at everybody on this team. I was trying really hard to find a reason to play these guys. The sim model likes these guys a little bit too. And I look closer at the matchup. This game is still the fourth highest total game on the slate, technically second, but it's tied with 3 other games. And so I was like, this is a spot. Like, this is a spot I could try to attack. But the more I looked at these matchups, it might be biased, but I really can't stand it. Like Tyrese Halliburton, pass. I don't like the matchup. 8,100. When he comes down to 7K a little bit, I might be willing to come back to it. Miles Turner, like you said, the chalk. I never love a Miles Turner chalky slate, especially on a slate when we have a lot of good value. So I put a 50% exposure maximum on him. I'm still going to be significantly over the field, but I could not have him be a core play for me tonight. I just refuse to let that happen. And then Matherin 2, Benedict, I say his last name wrong. He was someone I liked a little bit. I was thinking about putting a min on him to try and make him show up a little bit more, but then I looked at the matchup again. It just isn't a great environment. So he's showing up in about 8% of my lines, and that's going to be it. Halliburton is showing up in 1% of my lines, and that's just the DS doing its thing. That was not something I forced. For those of you who are wondering, we are using DFS Army's optimizer. If you're interested in having access to this optimizer that's won us all a lot of money, having access to the Discord, feel free to click the link in the description. Feel free to use promo code BDUBB for a 10% discount. Shane said, can you zoom in on the page? I don't know, Brandon, you able to zoom? Oh, I'm sharing. Oh, wow. You went a little. This is probably actually good.
Good for you.
This is Brandon's screen that I'm sharing today, that he's sharing. And so you're looking at some of the changes that he's making. And so that's the difference. If you're like, Josiah, you just said you didn't do any of those changes. No, yeah, that's Brandon. And he's showing you what he's doing on this slate. We go back and forth sometimes, try to keep it even. But yeah, I don't like the Pacers as much as I wish I did. Next up, we have the Magic going up against the Pacers. This is a spot I liked a bit more. I have a feeling you probably did too, Brandon, or, oh, I'm wrong. You don't like it as much as I do. That's fine. What was your thought process here?
So I did want to play some Suggs. I didn't go too crazy. I just put a 5% min on them just because, I mean, most of our value is at guard, so it's hard to play too many guard spots. But I do like him in this matchup. And then I've been going back and forth on Franz. He looked great last game and absolutely smashed. But I haven't pulled a trigger on him. I am getting a little bit, but I am slightly under the field on him. So those are the two main guys I would focus on here.
JM, yes, it's a stars and scrubs night. No questions asked.
Yep.
All right. For me, Magic, I like this team. This is a pace-up spot for them. Good matchup against the Pacers. Not great, but good. We still have Paolo out. We have Wendell Carter Jr. still out for these guys. That's when I'm going to force in Franz and Suggs. Franz, I put a 20% min on just because he wasn't showing up enough for me in the DS, so I just needed to boost that up a little bit. Suggs is pricey at 7,300, but the upside is there still, and so therefore I'm going to force some exposure to him as well. And then outside of that, these other Magic guys aren't showing up for me too much. You could make a case for some of their bigs, but I think we have better value at the position with more upside, honestly. So I think we're good to go here. We have a little bit of a stretch of some ugly games. We have the Celtics going up against the Nets. Hard to look at the Celtics too much tonight because they are one of the healthier teams going up against a pretty neutral matchup against the Nets. The biggest thing here is that Horford is out. So, you know, that makes Queta and guys like that a little bit more interesting. But what was your plan here? Anything?
No, not really. Just a team I'm not trying to get to tonight, to be honest.
I agree. I have guys like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Nehemiah showing up around 2% and 3%, and that's just the DS putting them in my lines, and I'm fine with that, but I'm still going to be under the field on all of them. And again, y'all, part of the thought process here, low total game, widespread, hard to get overly excited about it. And like I said, tough matchup for both sides, honestly.
I will say, you know, they lost to the Hawks last night, so anything's possible.
Yeah, a little bit more oomph tonight after that one. Yeah, you're not wrong. Next up, we have the Nets that, you know, still aren't that interesting, but there is some news that we got. Ben Simmons is officially out. Surprise, he's doing that thing again. DFS is still questionable, I believe, unless we got any news on that. Have you seen? Oh, no, he's also out. So Ben Simmons and DFS are both out, which made this team go from a team I wasn't looking at all to we now have some actual viable plays from the Nets tonight. Who are you looking at here, if anyone?
Yeah, so I just refreshed and haven't ran since that my lines again since that news. But as you can see, Zaire Williams is popping big time. So don't know how much of him I'll have yet, but I will have some pieces. He's still at a pretty cheap price, and as you can see, he should see a ton of minutes. I don't mind some Claxton. I don't know if I'll force him in, but he should have a decent matchup down low with pretty much their best bigs missing. And he's kind of been back to his normal run where he's getting around 30, slightly over 30 minutes. So I'd be okay getting some Claxton. And then I'll probably just let the DS figure out the rest of these guys like Jalen Wilson. And I'm sure we probably won't get any like Keon Johnson or Clowney or anything, but not too big on Cam or Schroeder tonight.
Yeah, it's weird. With Ben Simmons out, I was a little bit more interested in Cam Thomas, but he's seeing ownership. At 7K, he's 10% owned. That does not make sense to me. If he was lower owned, I'd be willing to take a shot because we know he's going to shoot, and you can always play guys who can shoot threes against tough defenses, but this is not a spot I'm trying to get exposure to him on. I think Zaire is really the main guy. He's showing up in about 20 or 35% of my lines right now. I'm comfortable with that. He's a $3,900 player. I don't think this game stays close for a long time, and so that's part of why I'm not overly excited about it. I don't play for blowouts, but Zaire feels relatively blowout proof, so I feel a bit better about him. Claxton is showing up in about, let's see, like 7% of my lines, but I don't love it. I didn't do anything to force it. Ideally, he would show up less, but I'm not going to X him out or anything like that. So not a big fan. I'm only looking at Zaire here. And like you mentioned too, Jalen Wilson is showing up in 1% of my line. So worth mentioning, I guess. For the Cleveland Cavaliers going up against the Sixers team, we don't know who's actually playing in this game yet. Jared Allen is still questionable. That's pretty big news for this team. I think it makes some of their star players much more viable. It would even, I think on this slate, we wouldn't really look at guys like Wade or Okoro or LeVert, but it could make guys like Mobley significantly more interesting. But what's your thought process here?
Yeah, this team wasn't really standing out too much for me. Of course, if Allen is rolled out, that'll change quite a bit. I do have a little bit of Mobley. I think I was like around 10%. So my interest in him would, of course, increase if Allen is rolled out. And then especially with Embiid, of course, is out and Drummond's rolled out too. So he should eat down low. So I don't mind playing him, and I'm surprisingly not playing Mitchell tonight. So
I know, right? I think for me, I'm in a similar boat, but I did go ahead and force exposure to Mobley. I have a 15% min on him. Yabusele's not stopping anybody on this team. I have zero concerns about that. Only concern I have is the potential blowout, but I don't really play for blowouts in a soft matchup. And so, therefore, I'm playing Evan Mobley. I'm going to have significant exposure to him. If Jared Allen ends up playing in this game, I'm forcing exposure to him, and I'll be significantly over the field on him. I think he would be a great, sneaky, low-owned play that I really, really like on this slate. But that's an if. We have to wait and see what happens there. If Allen also gets ruled out, then I'll take a shot on Mitchell or Garland too. I haven't decided which one quite yet, but we'll have to wait and see on that news. All right, next up we have the 76ers. This is the one I didn't really see coming when it came to injury news on this slate. Tyrese Maxey out, Joel Embiid out, Paul George out, and then Andre Drummond. We got the news that he's out as well. And so now we're looking at Yabusele, if I'm saying that right, I don't know. Looking at him probably starting here. And yeah, did you force exposure to anyone? I have to assume we probably have the same guy showing up close to a core play at this point.
Yep, really is the two value plays here for me. Yabusele, he's popping naturally, didn't have to do anything to him, so he'll be a core play with Drummond out now. And then Jared McCain, honestly, he should be starting over Lowry because Lowry just sucks. And
sadly,
McCain has strung together, I think it's 4 consistent games where he's done pretty well. So I'm definitely okay eating that chalk. And if this game does get out of hand, I think he is another one of those guys who's kind of blowout proof. So he'll be a core play for me as well. Mm-hmm. And then really I'm not getting anywhere else here.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Lowry, we'll see around 30 minutes tonight, but Kyle Lowry also has a 10% usage rate. And so I have zero interest in a 5K player with that kind of usage rate. That is awful. That's also why no one's playing him. Jared McCain, on the other hand, has a 25 to 30% usage rate when he's seeing minutes out there with these guys all out. McCain's the play. It is that simple for me. I really care about usage rates, and I also will have him pretty much as a core play. Yabusele showing up in pretty much all of my lines at this point. I want to see where ownership falls, but if I had to guess, I'll probably put an 80% cap on him as long as he's not going to be 40-50% owned, but I think he might end up being that high owned.
That's where I'm at, 80%.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about that 80. Yeah, I like that. I like what you did there, 80% cap. So that's what I'm looking at. I see some guys talking about Kelly O. Did you look at him at all?
No, he's too expensive for me, to be honest. Maybe if he was still in that 6K range, lower 6K range, I think about him, but I can't get there tonight.
Yeah, I think for me the biggest thing is price tag and matchup. If it was a softer matchup and I saw this game staying closer for a little bit, I might be down. Next up, we have the Pelicans going up against the Thunder. For the Pelicans, this is another team that just has a shit ton of injuries. CJ is out. DeJounte is out. Zion's out. Jose Alvarado is out. Jordan Hawkins out. Herb Jones out. Did any of that injury news, though, make the Pelicans more interesting, though, for you on the slate?
Yep. So I'll start with the obvious one, Jalen Noel. We've seen him kind of step up in situations like this in the past and has done really well. So I do like him at his cheap price tag. Brandon Boston didn't really have to do anything with him, and I'm like naturally almost double the field on him. So I'm
Really?
definitely okay with that. And he's been really consistent since all these guys have been injured. Brandon Ingram, I was trying to find reasons to play him, but his price tag is just too high for me, and
Mm-hmm.
also not a huge fan of this matchup. And another game that just has a high chance of blowing out, so didn't force him in. Um, One guy I've really been thinking about is Missy,
Yeah.
just because OKC like literally has no bigs. So um, he isn't the most consistent, but he's just somebody to keep in mind. And as you can see, he really won't be owned tonight. So he's somebody I'm on the fence about. But really, for me, it's Noel in Boston here.
Yeah, I'm interested in your exposures because for me, I had to force a little bit of exposure to Brandon Boston Jr. to show up because he just wasn't showing up for me naturally. Let me double check and make sure that's still the case. He's showing up around 13%. And so I have to put a 20% min on him just to kind of get him to show up a bit more. And it looks like I just got the notification and Bobby also messaged me. I appreciate that. It looks like Mobley, Evan Mobley is questionable. A game time decision. That makes the
Yeah,
Cavs a little bit more interesting too. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those slates, guys. Just keep a close eye out on that and the chat. Yeah, Nezzy, I don't think it's a crazy play. If you want to take your shot, he's low owned. You can do like a 5%, something like that. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, Thomas, we capped him at 80%. 150ing Mr. Five. Beat Up said, can you walk through the settings you use for FanDuel as well? Are your settings any different for FanDuel, Brandon?
no, I was gonna say pretty much what I'm doing now for DraftKings. It's exactly the same for FanDuel. Only difference is the way I tweak my exposures might be different just based on how different the pricing is over there.
Yep. And Harlock, most of these plays today are gummy plays, if we're being honest. Half these guys will not see the court most of the rest of the season tonight. So the gummies are free for us today. All right, let's see. And then for me with the Pelicans, I did put like that 20% man on Brandon Boston just to kind of make sure he was showing up a bit for me. There's another Pelican. Yeah, Noel is showing up a good bit, but I was around field weight, so I put a 35% min on him just to make sure him show up a bit more. And like you, I was looking at Ingram, but I couldn't get there because of the matchup, so I moved on. For the Thunder, this is a team that's pretty healthy outside of Chet, which is wild to say, but just given the rest of the slate, they're relatively healthy. Caruso's out, so that does kind of matter, but he hasn't been seeing too many minutes. Did you end up forcing exposure to anybody here?
I thought I did to SGA, but I'll probably put like a 10 or 15% min on him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the blowout concern is real, but he's just too good and has a pretty soft matchup, so I don't mind going there. But the rest of these guys, I didn't do anything to. I am getting like little pieces of Wiggins, Dort, and Joe. I don't believe I had any Wallace showing, but not trying to force these guys in. I just let the DS kind of dictate how much of them I get.
Yeah, it is a slate where it feels like we have better value than a lot of these options.
Yep.
I do have a 15% min on SGA as well. Matchup's not bad with Alvarado and Crew out. And so 15% min on SGA. I just like to have a mixture of some of these studs who have 50, 60, 70 or more point upside. And so that's why I have a 15% min on him. Outside of that, there's really just Lou Dort showing up and Aaron Wiggins around 7%. I'm going to be significantly under the field on them because of what I said. And Jalen Williams and Casey Wallace are showing up in like 2 to 1% of my line. So not enough to really matter too much for me. All right. Finally, a fun game to talk about again. We have the Chicago Bulls going up against the Knicks, which sounds weird to say. That probably shouldn't have been the right way of thinking about that. But Anyway, for Chicago tonight, they are relatively healthy. Jalen Smith is questionable, but nothing that really matters too much here. I'm not playing a lot of the Bulls tonight. Are you?
Nope, just one guy for me, and that's Zach LaVine. I just love his price, and small forward is kind of weak tonight, so I think he just makes a lot of lines work. And the Knicks defense is like pretty bad this year compared to last year, so I do think this is a spot where he can do really well. I did consider Giddey and White, but I didn't end up pulling the trigger. But if anybody asked me, would it be okay to play him, I wouldn't say no. So
it's weird because everything in me wants to play Zach LaVine, but I feel like the Knicks defense is a little underrated this year. I feel like people are sleeping on them. But you're not wrong. There definitely is still some upside there. But at that price tag, 6,800 is just perfect for him. Like, that's when you want to play Zach LaVine. He's showing up naturally in about 7% of my lines, and so I'm just going to live with that. But I don't hate the call by any means. Outside of that, no one else really stood out for me here. And so I just kept it moving. For the Knicks, though, this is where we have more injury news. This game has the highest total on the slate, though, and we always say it. You're looking for reasons to play guys in this game. So Zach LaVine really is a solid call. For the Knicks, Jalen Brunson is questionable. Miles McBride, questionable. Cameron Payne, questionable. These are big pieces here that actually do matter on this slate. So we have to keep a pretty close eye on what actually ends up happening here. But in the short term, did you force exposure to anybody?
Yep, the only one I really had to force in, who I wasn't getting much of just because of all the value we have at guard, is Jalen Brunson. If he does play, I do really like him in this matchup. Bulls are another team that's not really good defensively, so I think he can smash here. Karl Anthony Towns, I'm usually not a fan of him, but you really can't deny how he's been playing this year, and he's been really solid. So 8,700 is still too cheap for how he's been playing. Josh Hart, I do like him quite a bit as well. 6,600. He plays a crap ton of minutes and does a little bit of everything on his team. So he will be a core play for me tonight. And then guys like OG and Bridges, I didn't really have to do anything. They're showing up close to fill weight for me.
Yep. Good to see, and thank y'all for the news updates in the chat, making life a little bit easier for us. Fred VanVleet is in, ABC in, Rollins doubtful. Looks like he might be out. That does continue to complicate some of those news situations. But for me, the Knicks are a team to prioritize tonight. I like the min on Brunson. I'm kind of waiting on the news, but I do like having that 15% min on him, assuming he's going to play. And then Cat shows up naturally for all of us. 8,700 is a bit too cheap. The important thing here is that the Knicks are a above average defense. They play at a slow pace. And so that's why we're not really looking at the Bulls. But the Bulls play at play at one of the fastest paces in the NBA, and they're a bad defense. And so you want to force exposure to this team tonight. That's the high game total and the relatively close spread. So for me, 15% min on Brunson. Cat shows up by himself. Let's see. OG, I also had to put a 20% min on. Bridges, I have a 20% min on. And Hart, I have a 25% min on. So I'm forcing exposure to all of these guys tonight. I like the Knicks. It's that simple. If McBride and or Payne end up getting ruled out, that just makes me even more excited about forcing more exposure to Brunson and maybe taking a couple shots on whoever ends up actually playing if Brunson does get ruled out. So Knicks are a team to make sure you're keeping an eye out for. Next up, we have the Washington Wizards going up against the Spurs. Healthy team right now, relatively. Let me double check, make sure I'm not missing anything. But Washington is one of the more boring teams on this slate. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon's out, but it doesn't really change much for me. They're going up against the Spurs. Who are you looking at?
No one.
Yeah.
And some of these other guys we've been playing are kind of priced up from when Kuzma has been out as well. So it's just ugly on this side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. Safe to move forward here. I can't make a case for anyone. I don't really like picking on the Spurs too much in general. Spurs going up against a really bad Washington team, though, is a little bit more interesting. From an injury news standpoint, let's see, who are we missing? Jeremy Sohan still out. Trey Jones still out. Malachi Branham. I feel like we got that news, didn't we? No, he's still questionable.
Yes.
Yeah, Malachi is still questionable. So matters. Oh, not really at all, to be honest. But who are you looking at for the Spurs?
Victor, of course. I just wanted to make sure I had some of him at this ownership and soft matchup tonight. I also don't mind pivoting to him to get off chalky Giannis, who let us down last night.
Exactly, just mixing in the studs.
Yep. So yeah, like you just said, I want to make sure he's a stud that's mixed throughout my lines. And then I am taking a shot on Castle. I know we have some better value at guard, but I feel like he's finally coming into his own as a player. He's been solid the last few games, and again, it's a soft matchup, so I do like him a little bit. And 5% ownership, I feel like he's worth a shot. Yeah. And yeah, no one else on his team is really sticking out.
Yeah, seeing him still play 30 plus minutes, even with Vassell back, is what keeps him interesting, you know? And I think they realize he's the guy who was their draft pick. He has upside. And so I like that call. What min do you have on him?
5%.
Yeah, I think 5% is about right. I wish I could take a stronger stance than 5%, but there's just too much value on this slate.
Yeah, if we didn't have as much value at guard as we do, I'll go higher.
Yeah, but it's too tough. So yeah, I think 5% is the right call. And then the next two games are pretty gross and not overly exciting. We have the Clippers going up against the Rockets. When it comes to the Clippers tonight, the obvious guys, the usual guys who are out. No new injury news. But they're going up against the Rockets, which is also not interesting. Are any of the Clippers standing out for you?
None at all.
Yep, same.
I mean, I'll never argue against Harden, but if I'm going to pay that much, I'd rather go elsewhere, to be honest. So
yeah, for me, he would have to be 1% owned, and he's not.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Unfortunate. It's a revenge narrative, though, if you're into those. But I'm not doing that on this slate. Next up, we have the Rockets going up against the Clippers. This team, when it comes to injury news, Rockets, Houston. Also, not much. Fred VanVleet's playing, so not really much to worry about here. Did any of these guys stand out?
Yep, I am forcing in Şengün and VanVleet, just a 10% on Şengün and 5 on VanVleet. They both are looking good on the sim model. I trust Şengün a little more, but VanVleet, his price just always suckers me in, and he might suck again tonight, but I can't help myself. So
you're like, I gotta do it. No, I feel you. I saw the same thing in the sim, and I also wanted to force exposure to them, but I am the opposite of you. I can't play them. I just really don't like playing them in these low total games against teams like the Clippers. I will play the Rockets all day, every day in soft matchups, but not in these ones. So low ownership play, I think it makes a ton of sense. I just can't get on board today. I do have a few Rockets showing up, like Terry Easton at 1%, Şengün at 1%, but not enough to really move the needle.
Yep.
Next up, we have the Pistons going up against the Bucks. This is a team that's more interesting to me than I thought it was going to be on this slate, which I don't know if I'm happy about that or upset about it. But basically, Detroit, Jaden Ivey's out. Tim Hardaway Jr. is out. Fontecchio is out. Asar Thompson is out. The other guy doesn't matter. Are you liking the Pistons as much as I do, or am I just crazy?
Oh, no, I like them quite a bit tonight, actually. I mean, it's hard not to. Milwaukee's defense is not good at all, and you just named a whole bunch of guys that are out. So a lot of value on this team. So I'll start with one guy who I think is getting slept on, Marcus Sasser. We haven't really seen his potential this season yet, and the minutes he has played so far this year, he's kind of sucked, not gonna lie, but we have seen him in games last year where when guys are out, he does smash. And 3K flat, I'm going to be way over the field on him, and with Rollins looking like he's unlikely to play, I might get even more now. So I do think he's being slept on tonight. Beasley, I'm never really a fan of him, but again, great matchup, bunch of guys out. We know he's gonna, that too, and he's gonna shoot the ball a lot. So I'll have a lot of Beasley. I did put a 20% min on Cade. Same reasons I've already mentioned. I do think he will bounce back from last night because he kind of let us down from last game, but solid bounce back spot for him. Tobias, I'm always on the fence with him. I feel like he'll get you close to value, but that upside is just missing from him. Like, no matter the situation, I feel like he always gets in like the mid 30s on DraftKings. So that's not really enough for me. Like, I would love to see 40 to 50 performances, but haven't seen that yet. So not sure if I'll force him in. And then Holland, he's another gross value play. I just put a manual price on him because he wasn't showing up for us yet, but it looks like we updated that. So I will.
Well, Holland's doubtful now, right?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, scratch that. Yeah. But yeah, Sasser, Beasley.
Oh, wait, no. It's Ryan Rollins that's unlikely to play. My bad.
Okay,
right.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did put a 10% man on Holland. If he starts, I'll be willing to play more of him. But he's definitely not one of my favorite value plays tonight.
Yeah, JM asks, can I play Sasser in single entry if he starts to pivot from McCain Chalk? Or do I play both? I'm only asking you because you mentioned Sasser. So I got to ask you now.
Yeah, I still have to build mine because I'm sure it's going to be hard to fit like all these value guards, but I don't mind taking a shot on Sasser, especially with Rollins unlikely to play. So I'm completely fine with that.
Gino, yeah, I love Cade, honestly. I would like Cade more if Lillard was playing because Lillard's just not a great defender. That sounds shady, but it's just true. And so Lillard being on the court is part of why I like playing guards against the Bucks, but it's still a solid matchup for him. If this game stays close, it should be because of him. And so he's the guy I forced exposure to. Tobias Harris, I forced exposure to as well. I'm over the field there. Malik Beasley, I have a 30% min on, just making sure he stays in a good amount of my lines. Typically not good. Historically, I've always tried to avoid playing him, but in this spot, I like it. And then I have a 5% min on Sasser. I don't like him quite as much as you. I just don't trust him. But I wanted to make sure he showed up a little bit for me. And then, like you said, Ronald Holland is showing up a decent amount. How much did you say you were thinking about him for, or you don't know yet?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. Ideally, I want to see if he starts or not, but at the moment, I just have 10%. Yeah. But I also haven't ran it again since his projection got updated. So
yeah. I only have 5%, honestly, right now. Not as much as I thought I was going to have. Let me look a little bit closer. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably at least put like a 10, 15% min on him if he doesn't show up more in my future runs. But as of right now, I would like to see him show up a little bit just because he's a 3K player and we have so many of these guys. I'm just trying to naturally create a nice rotation here in my lines because there's not really too many that stand out for me. For the Bucks going up against the Pistons, who are typically a team we like to pick on. When it comes to injury news, we talked about it. Lillard is out. Rollins is doubtful, probably going to be out. Middleton's been out. Who's standing out for you on this team?
Really, it's just Giannis for me. I did cap him at 50. I'll still be over the field, but I don't want to get stuck with too much of him, especially if he doesn't perform well again. I do think he has a better game tonight. I mean, it's hard not to after how he performed last night, but I'm still over the field on him, and Not really looking at anyone else here, to be honest, with all the other value we have.
He had a slow start. He's still got the 44. I mean, not nearly as much as you need to pay off his price tag, but he got there a little bit there towards the end. I'm curious to see who gets Rollins minutes here.
Yeah, I think it'll be DeLon Wright.
Yeah, and at 3,800, we have other value that's probably just as good. DeLon is a very low usage rate player. He's never a guy we should get overly excited about. That's like the main thing that's always been in my head ever since. He used to be chalky pretty often. So, yeah, for me, I have a crap ton of Giannis. I have 83%, if you want to know the exact percentage. And I'm just going to write that one out and hope for the best there. Because I do hope this game goes back and forth between Giannis and Cade is really the narrative that I'm playing. But outside of that, no one else is really showing up too much, but I wouldn't be upset if Gary Trent did show up a little bit. I know we hate him, but I'm actually just going to put a 5% min on Gary Trent because with some of these injuries, he has to increase his usage rate. There are no other options left on this team. This is his moment. I'll call that our pre-lock show leverage play because I'm about to do that at 0 ownership. Do not play him in single entry. He will burn you.
No, please,
he will burn you.
If he was in the 3K range, I would still question if I wanted to play him.
No, understandably so. He's not a good play, but I could see it with some of the injuries. All right, we'll answer a couple of questions, and then we have to jump. Louise said, do you set an ownership cap when running the DS? No, not for NBA.
Nope.
Exposure to Beasley. For me, it's 37% currently.
34 for me.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of gross names, guys. Who are the best 3 guards on this slate? And can you run all 3 if the price is right? The way you worded that. Not bad, but interesting. Do you have any strong stands here, like with your favorite 3? I can go if you don't.
I mean, that's... If we're talking about value, then, of course, you got McCain, Noel. Outside of value, I'd say probably Brunson would be my favorite. Yeah. And Cade as well.
Yeah, you got to put Cade in there. I'm doing one more run that's at like 70 lines right now, so I can give you a more transparent answer once we actually get that in. But I like the names you mentioned. I don't think you were off there. I think I'll probably have a very similar list once this run finishes. In the meantime, Giannis or Wemby? For me, it's Giannis. What about you?
Same.
All right. Lines just finished. Guard spot. Yeah, it's McCain, Zaire Williams, and Noel. And then after that, it's like Malik Beasley. So just a lot of value guards. And yeah, I'm totally fine playing 3 in 1 line. That's happening a good amount for me. But then when I'm paying up, it's the list you mentioned. It's Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson, and then SGA is like my favorite pay up guard, but that's not a surprise to anyone. And then there's a leverage play that is on the sheet that you can look at on DFS Army if you're interested in that. Vucevic, not for me tonight, Ricardo. No Vuce for me. What about you, Brandon?
Same. I won't have any.
Ooh, Jared Allen is playing. And no, potentially Mobley's still questionable. Yep. You already know. I'm boosting up that Jared Allen exposure. How much do you hate it, Brandon? Are you not on board?
Oh, no, I don't hate it at all.
Like, that literally made this entire slate for me. Just going over the field on Jared Allen, and the rest will sort itself out with the DS. I would love to get the Mobley news, though. If they could give us that back-to-back, that would be sweet. But I guess we'll just have to wait for it. Allen starting, yep.
Just to answer Sean's question, too, I think you can play on both. I mean, we have all the value in the world, so not against it.
Do you have a good I want to see how much of that I have.
Let me see.
Yeah, I have Victor in about 7% of my lines with Giannis and SGA in about the other 7%. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of and then Cat is in a ton of these lineups. So, yeah, you can definitely do that on this slate. So, y'all, I know this is a relatively short show, 8-game slate. We had to move pretty fast, close to lock, have a lot of stuff going down. But appreciate y'all's support. Please click the like button if you like what you see. If you don't, that's fine. We'll live. But Click the link in the description to join DFS Army. Good luck tonight. Peace out.
Big time, no man, diamonds in my teeth. I got a lot of shit.